You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program where we break down everything moving on the crypto side of the fence. We'll talk to spot, we'll talk to futures, we'll talk to vol, we'll talk to volume, the SKEW, the options, all that good stuff. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting The Options Insider Radio Network. I'm ready. I'm excited to dive into all things crypto this week. And joining me on this epic journey through the world of crypto, our old friend, Mr. Bill ULIVIERI from Cenacle Capital Management. Bill, welcome back to the Crypto Rundown program, sir.
Always great to be back, Mark. Love being in the room with you.
Wow, this might be a first where you've actually come on and everything's worked off the bat, sir. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I've jinxed us now.
Don't put the malokes, as we used to say, on the event here. We're using some old-school technology that is being a landline that goes right into the wall, so there are still some benefits to staying behind the curve instead of using, VoIP or other things. So I'm pretty excited that we're going to have a positive and a well-modulated interview today.
Yes. Something to be said for old school technology. All right, without further ado, lest I jinx us any further, let's keep on rolling right on into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trading activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown. This is indeed the portion of the show where we tell you exactly what the heck is going on here in the world of Bitcoin. And it's pretty much been another down week. Some people speculating maybe the flight back to quality in the broad equity indices in the markets as other indices are making new highs. Some of that maybe sapping some of the steam, some of the strength out of the crypto space, because crypto down yet again this week, approximately 550 or so handles from where we were last week. Last week we were a little bit north of 8,700. This week coming into showtime, we're still shy of the 8,200 level, about 8,180 or so out here. So a little bit of weakness still here in the crypto space. We saw the high of the week, coming not too long after showtime last week on the 12th, hit 88.19, and then pretty much turned back to the dark side later in the week. And the low of the week pretty much coming right now during showtime. that was pretty much our low, right around the 81 to 80 odd level or so, right around there. So yeah, not exactly a robust way to kick off the week. Bill, it's been a little while since you've been on, so before I get to all the fun options and volatility and all that good stuff, why don't you tell us what's been lighting up your tape in Bitcoin world since the last time we chatted?
Well, I still think that it's almost hard to believe that at the beginning of this year, end of 2018, that Bitcoin was in the low 3,000 handle, around $3,200, $3,300 a token. Then we had some positive news. People were throwing in the towel, and as usually what happens is people throw in the towel. We break through some resistance, and it traded up to around 13,300. Now we've pulled back from there, and once again, emotions are waning like a 2-year-old on crypto Twitter. Either it looks like it's the next breakout to 100,000, 200,000, $1 million per token. That pumping of the token. Or it's going to zero and nobody wants it anymore. So, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies still suffer from emotional baggage, just like a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum. But I will say I believe that the low we put in 2018, 2019, and that low 3,000 handle, we can draw a respectable support line from there, and I think we're just going to be bouncing off that, going into the next, 6 or 12 months. So I'm looking for a little bit of support in the high 6,000 handle, and we're just going to go from there, just kind of trade the ranges, I think, Mark, going forward. In terms of other cryptocurrencies, some news from PayPal that probably should be discussed later on in the episode, but right now, it's pretty quiet, all things considering. We have a halving coming up next year where the rewards given to miners will be cut in half. So I think that that's going to affect the supply, the new supply coming out in Bitcoin. So there are some permeables are promoting that concept of the fewer supply coming on the market, unlike our Federal Reserve, which continues to pump about $100 billion plus into the economy.
nice little slide there at the old fiat world there, Bill. But I think you spooked some people. Hopefully we got a support at 3,000. Hopefully we're not retesting those lows anytime soon there, Bill. That would be an interesting warm turning, I think, in the crypto space if we retraced all the way back down to the dark days there of the end of the crypto winter. Doesn't seem like vol is pricing then that stark of a movement right now. Remember, we've been kind of frothy right around this 73% or so level in the 30-day realized, and the markets are moving enough to pretty much maintain right around those levels. That's pretty much what we're seeing in both the realized and the implied 30-day realized, pretty much unched right around, almost exactly unched, which is kind of eerie, about 73.4. I think it was 73.2 on the show last week. So that frame of reference hasn't really changed, and 30-day implied, pretty much the same deal. It's off a little bit more than a point, about 1.4% from where it was last week. 58% last week, 56% this week, 56.6 actually. So things are frothy enough, obviously, to maintain those levels. It's not like Bitcoin is sitting right here. It's moving. Like I said, it's sold off almost 600 handles this week. So there is some movement to be found out there. Overall, this movement actually translating into a little bit of volume over there, at least in Deribit land this week. Remember, we have that 30 million benchmark we talked about. I think we have a listener question about that in a little bit, so maybe we'll get back to that again later on in the show. But yeah, looking at that threshold, we had a number of days crossing it this week. A pretty decent volume week overall. The big day was the 14th, over 70 million, 72.6 million, changing hands. Pure notional. Now, not contracts. That'd be nice if it was contracts, but this is just pure notional. I've expressed my views on that in the past, how the crypto world likes to quote in notional. It's annoying, but c'est la vie. We have to make our peace with it, at least for now, until these numbers get a little bigger, maybe. And then the 15th, 33.4 million. On the 17th, 35.2 million. Those are the days that are kind of north of that benchmark. In terms of what was dominating the tape this week, it wasn't a lot of size prints. Actually, kind of a light overall size week. I mean, there was net volume, some decent days, but big prints, not a lot dominating the tape. We like to filter by north of 50 contracts out there, and there wasn't slim pickings once you start filtering by that. The biggest print on the tape, at least over there on Deribit, was a pretty far out of the money vertical in June. The June 18,000, 20,000 vertical, going up 100 times back when Bitcoin was at a whopping 85.36. Oh, that seems so lofty now. Looks like they may have sold it, given how, again, we don't have that information going up on the tape. The way the IV is on these strikes, maybe maybe they sold it. So maybe a little bit of a covered call with the protective kicker up at that 20,000 level. Either way, 18,000, 20,000 vertical go up 100 times. Whether they bought it or sold it, it's interesting to parse kind of either way. Excuse me. That's kind of about it for the big size print side. I mean, looking here really quickly, got like about a 50 lot of the DC 8,000 puts, if that excites anybody, going up out there as well. Not a lot going on out there. In terms of the vol term structure, same deal. It's like we just copied the structure from last week and pasted it on here. The levels are the same. The shape is the same. Contracts may be rolling off the board. That's pretty much the only real difference. So from a vol perspective, things not exactly changing a lot here this week. What has changed a little bit is the call, the put, as the OI is kind of rolling off the board a little bit. It's up to 61% in favor of the calls. So interestingly enough, we're selling off this week. Calls back in charge, up from a little bit north of 50% last week. It was pretty much a pick-em last week, calls versus puts. This week, calls back in charge pretty firmly up to about 61%. Of course, that said, the OI is coming off a little bit again, down to exactly 500 million from about 513 last week, as we're seeing some of these contracts and the weeklies roll off the board. They're taking some OI with them. That is starting to be repopulated in the monthlies out there. In let's see, looks like DEES is starting to grow to make up some of that, but hasn't picked up enough to make up for some of the NOV contracts that have rolled off the board, hence the OI dropping a little bit. But NOV is picking up about 31,000 or so, almost 32,000 contracts open in, DEES. DEES is still where the lion's share of the open interest is right now from a Bitcoin options perspective. Number two is the 29th of November contract. That's about 13,000. Then it kind of falls off from there. And then we got all the way out to March, 27th of March, with about 9,000. So, yeah, interesting to see where the OI is aggregating. It does seem like the lion's share of it continues to focus there in December. Before we get on out into the futures here, Bill, anything catching your eye from a Bitcoin options perspective this week, sir?
Not really, Mark. Honestly, I take a much broader view of Bitcoin trading. I don't really look that closely at the option volatility or the implieds. I just kind of pick my spots very old school. That seems to be the way I've been rolling lately. And so I still am, while we have the options that are going to be listed in December, I believe, at the BAKKT exchange. If I'm correct on that news, I'm still waiting. My world is exchange-traded funds. My world is IRAs and 401ks and self-directed accounts. So until those products, those securities come over to my side of the platform, then I just keep a little bit of attention to what's going out on the street. That, for me, is going to be where retail is going to embrace the Bitcoin options, Bitcoin trading, Bitcoin ETFs. Once that stuff comes on board, then it's Katie bar the door, in my opinion. But until then, it's just all very interesting and little trails, breadcrumbs of where things are going.
Yeah, speaking of breadcrumbs, it's kind of what we're seeing on the futures side here this week. Let's look at CME first. Kind of a light volume day and pretty much a light volume week. Come into showtime, we have about 4,000 contracts, so not bad. Remember, that's a 5X contract over there in CME land, with the past week doing decent volume, not a ton. Friday was the big day, 44, almost 4,500. Then Thursday about 2,500. Wednesday about 2,200. Tuesday about 3,700. And Monday about 3,900 or so. So decent week, not a huge week out there on the CME side. BAKKT, you guys always asking about BAKKT. The number is looking pretty decent here today as well. Looks like about 1,200 contracts going up on the BAKKT. These are the monthly futures on BAKKT coming into showtime here today. So a decent week. Speaking of CME and BAKKT futures, Bill, if you got the futures, you got to have the options to go along with them. And here we are, CME jumping into the fray. I was bugging them forever. They finally announced Q1, and then I kept saying to them, maybe we get a little more insight into that, and finally got a date from CME, Bill, which was, of course, they got the 13th now of January. So that surprised me, because I was assuming, given all the hemming and hawing we heard over there, that would probably be much later in Q1, maybe right at the end of March, just getting it in right under the wire. But that's not going to be the case. We're going to see him in January. And then apparently, not to be outdone, because CME and ICE love to go back and forth. ICE deciding, you know what, we're not really lighting up the tape from a futures perspective yet, but you know what, that's not going to stop us from listing options on said futures and beating CME to the punch at the same time. So what did ICE announce recently? Yeah, they're going to come to market as well with options, and they're going to do it on December 9th. So in less than a month right now, listeners, we will have a listed, regulated, approved Bitcoin options. I know we have a few on. We have LedgerX on in the past. There are some others out there, but this is from a venue at least associated with a large trading venue out there. So that'll be something to see. So, Bill, in your neck of the woods, in the kind of pro-crypto trading community, is this news starting to make some ripples over there? We've got the options finally coming, and apparently BAKKT is getting into that fray as well. Is this lighting up your tape over there?
Yeah, I think it definitely is a little bit, Mark. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, so for years, since 2014 roughly, when Athena Trade and Athena Bitcoin got into the Bitcoin ATM world and expanding its vision globally and bringing Bitcoin to the masses, especially in those countries overseas that suffer from social economic issues. There's a greater good theory. There's a philanthropic idea here that we can get Bitcoin into the hands of the unbanked and the underbanked throughout the world. So while we're focusing on futures and options contracts, and it's all well and good, when people, if Bitcoin does establish and does take off its role as digital cash and potentially a global reserve currency, we're going to need these futures contracts. We're going to need these option contracts. We're going to need market makers to provide liquidity. We're going to need custody and settlement and all these things that we currently enjoy in the world of listed derivatives. So yes, it is very exciting. We're taking it one step at a time. I would say, from my perspective, while the technology meetup groups and the technology fintech groups that are dedicated to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are very fun to attend, and you're meeting great people, the events that seem to be gaining the most traction are the ones that have to do with regulation technology, RegTech or legal tech, in the world of cryptocurrency and how we're going to apply this new digital asset to the rules and processes and procedures that we already are comfortable with in being able to identify, anti-money laundering issues and know your client, the AML KYC initiatives that we need to have in place in order to trust a contract. I've said, over and over again on your program that we need to have these regulations in place, that these are good for investors, they're good for people who are trading, and it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. It's what builds trust. So every little notice, every little news story, every little new listing that meets the stamp of the SEC or CFTC, we think is, when I say we, I'm not speaking on behalf of Athena. I'm just saying, in being in the community of cryptocurrency traders in blockchain, this is all good stuff. We knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time. We have to be patient, and it's coming our way, and it's really, really exciting.
Yes, it is. People have been writing into us, I think even recently on the shows about, when we're going to see BAKKT options. People were getting the cart ahead of the horse. I kept telling them, get some futures volume first. Apparently BAKKT's doing that as well. We're just going to list the options, list it all, and let the market sort it out. So you guys who have been asking us, where can I get my crypto options? How do I trade them? Where can I get them, particularly here in the U.S.? Going to have a new venue available sometime soon. So this is certainly going to be, a game changer, not just the BAKKT ones, but the CME ones coming online. Those actually have some decent futures volume behind them. Those two coming online, these are actual entities you can connect to. They're regulated. They're listed here in the U.S. Your brokers will be able to connect with them with ease. You can use a lot of your traditional brokerage platforms to maybe trade these things. That'll be a nice change of pace for a lot of people who had to connect to myriad disparate venues, maybe to try to trade crypto derivatives. So hopefully this is the beginning of a renaissance in the space. Like we said many times, we want all these products to blow the doors. We want them all to succeed because it's better for our audience. It's better for us. It's better for everybody out there to have a healthy ecosystem of products rather than one dominant player or even a whole bunch of stuff going on overseas. Meanwhile, while the U.S. is here trying to pick through the scraps, trying to figure out what the heck we want to do here in this crypto space. None of that's good for anybody out here. Before we keep rolling out of Bitcoin into the altcoin land, Mr. Bill, I know you mentioned PayPal earlier. What's lighting up your tape in the PayPal land these days, sir?
Well, it's interesting. PayPal had made hit the news tape last week when it denied the transactional, the merchant payments to people that were in the pornography industry. So apparently Pornhub has hundreds of thousands of sex workers, have hundreds of thousands of models that are receiving payment for the content that they provide on their platform. And PayPal shut down hundreds of thousands of them. So now apparently Pornhub is paying its workers in a cryptocurrency called VERGE, which is a offshoot, a derivative of Dogecoin, which is a derivative of Bitcoin. So it's almost hilarious in a way for me even to talk about this kind of concept. But I think it's interesting that before there was never another avenue to make any kind of cryptocurrency payment. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. In the old days, there was no way to make payment to anybody other than through U.S. dollars, whether it be through PayPal or other commercial merchant banking industry. Now there's an alternative, and there never used to be one before. So I find the concept fascinating, where there's a type of censorship that's going on by PayPal, which also is not available in all the countries throughout the world. There are some countries that you're not able to transact in PayPal or U.S. dollars, and here we go. This is kind of what Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies was designed for, a censorless, non-nation state banking system or payment system that is as good as digital cash. And I just find the concept of it very, very interesting. Just as WikiLeaks was able to receive Bitcoin back after Julian Assange, was getting in trouble, Satoshi Nakamoto, the anonymous inventor of Bitcoin, said, "Beware, the swarm is coming at us." So in other words, once Bitcoin hit this news that it was an alternative payment system, that's when we saw the concept of an alternative digital currency take root. And again, I think the whole thing is amazing. We have more and more companies that are beginning to do cryptocurrency lending. You can earn about 6.2% APY on your Bitcoin holdings versus, say, 1.8% on a 10-year U.S. Treasury. So there's some really cool stuff going on. And again, these are all baby steps and mileposts taking us to what will eventually be a fully digital cryptographic future.
I have to admit, Bill, when you came on, I didn't expect you to bring up Bitcoin payments to sex workers here on the show. So there's a new wrinkle for everyone out there. And you're right, it does kind of highlight the use case out there, maybe not that in particular. It's always the extreme niches that help to clarify the use cases for others out there. And if there is going to be some form of censorship on some form of payment, having alternatives out there is always interesting. Speaking of alternatives, let's get to some of those now with a little bit of the old altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, let's get to it. It's not all sex workers all the time here on the show. Only when Bill's on. That's when we get into the weeds. Let's get into what's going on out there in the altcoin universe. Mostly down days here for our friends here in the altcoin. Let's get into it, actually. As we did a little bit last week, it seems appropriate to start breaking down things in the altcoin with the clear number two out there, both in spot volume and indeed in derivatives volume and interest. It's ETH. ETH having a bit of a rough week this week, down about 8 handles net coming into the show from where it was this time last week. Let's look at the options out there and parse those a bit, because there is a growing audience out there and a growing market out there for ETH options. Let's see. The realized out there, 30-day realized, down a little bit, slightly. It was about 63% on the show last week. Now it's about 58%. Implied actually ticking up a little bit, so getting a little bit of movement here to keep things frothy out there in ETH implied. It's up to nearly 65% from about 63.5%, but still pretty mild movements on the vol side. It's kind of like Bitcoin. Vol is kind of where it is right now, and there's enough movement to sustain that, but not a lot moving in either direction in terms of going dramatically up or dramatically down. The call to put, though, is down a little bit. It was pretty much all calls all the time last week. It was almost about 92% calls last week. This week, it's down to a paltry, a meager 85% calls. So you want to play in ETH options, it's still mostly on the call side of the fence, at least for the time being. OI this week, overall, pretty much unched, still around 46 million, which, again, to put that in comparison to Bitcoin, let's look at the Bitcoin OI. And this is just on Deribit, is at about half a billion, exactly, 500 million exactly right now. Again, I take that back. That combines Deribit and LedgerX. So those two venues combined about $500 million, whereas ETH right now is still pretty much at about 46 million. So much smaller, but still a robust one out there. If you're wondering where does that OI aggregate? Where are people playing out there? It's still like it is in Bitcoin. It's pretty much all DECE all the time, with about 19,000 contracts open in that DECE contract. So that's where most of the action is. So it's DECE calls. And if you're wondering, let's do a little farther for curiosity. Where across the broad spectrum of strikes and open interest is the action right now, is the bulk of the open interest? In ETH right now, remember I said coming into the show here, we're at a little bit shy of the 180 level, about 178. So you might assume it's around maybe that 200 level, and it's not bad. There's about 21,000 contracts open there, but that's not where the lion's share of the love is. No, listeners, it's up to the 600 strike. 26,000 contracts. That's the number one strike out there in ETH right now, which is interesting. Then you got number two is the 200 strike, and then looks like 160 to the downside as number three out there. So interesting. Probably some legacy paper, maybe some very optimistic paper, but either way, far, far, far upside dominating the open interest out there in ETH land. Let's go out to our friend XRP. Off a little bit again. It's been a rough time here for XRP. Of course, legal woes plaguing it as well. Off another roughly 2.5 cents or so down there to right now coming into showtime. They were at about 25, right around almost 25 even out there. So not exactly threatening that 30-cent level again to the upside anytime soon. Litecoin also coming off this week down about 6 handles from where it was this time last show, down to about a 55, almost a 56 out there. And we got Bitcoin Cash taking a nice drubbing down 42 handles from where it was last week, including 22 of that coming in the last 24 hours, with about Bitcoin Cash right now at about 246 here. Coming into showtime here, and last week we were at about 288 or so, and and Litecoin was at about a 62 on our last show. So, Bill, a lot going on in altcoin land. One of the reasons I like having you on is you always have some interesting, some funky altcoin that you're watching in your back pocket. So, what is lighting up your tape in the altcoin world these days, sir?
Mark, I don't mean to go back to an old topic here, but I want to if I could just for a minute talk about the concept of the VERGE coin. And I know we kind of made fun of the, the sex workers and the pornography industry being paid in VERGE. But don't forget, VERGE has to be sold to Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin has to be sold to be converted into U.S. dollars. So there's this trail, there's this tail dog, the tail wagging the dog kind of situation, just like it was when we were on the trading floor. You had a pension fund come in and sell S&P 500 options. Those options were purchased and then hedged against the OEX 100 options, and then those options were hedged with 80 of the top 100 individual equity options. So there's this concept of liquidity that's provided by the products that you and I were talking about in the beginning of the segment. So while it's easy to dismiss a use case, however immoral or unethical you might believe it to be, there is a financial and economic benefit to PayPal shutting down the payment for these workers and an organization going outside the U.S. dollar for payments. So I find that really interesting. But anyhow, in terms of the cryptocurrencies that the other alt tokens, honestly, Mark, there's always exciting cryptocurrencies to talk about. But the standards, the XRPs, the Raven coin, all the other tokens that have been popular in the top 50 tokens are all very interesting. We, again, philosophically, we have, 17 trillion, 18 trillion of negative interest rate bonds. We have the Federal Reserve pumping billions of dollars into the economy. These cryptocurrencies are outside the market. They're outside the system. So there's a great interest in anything that even has a chance of staying liquid and staying stable, if that's the best way to say it, a stable token going forward. So, again, the conversation is the same. There isn't any unusual tokens out there in my world other than the VERGE token, which is what everybody's been talking about for the last 10 days or last 5 days or so. So I just had to say that.
It certainly has been an interesting aspect of the space. And when folks, I'm always curious when folks come in to that arcade you guys have over there in Athena land here in Chicago. I know a lot of them obviously trading Bitcoin, but when they're slinging altcoin, is it pretty much the big names we just mentioned, the XRPs and the ETH, that pretty much what dominates their tape, or are there some interesting names coming across the arcade over there as well?
No, I would not say there's any new interesting names coming through the door, Mark. Honestly, a hedge fund is primarily long only in the cryptocurrency world, so there's not really any pairs trading or long-short strategies going on. It's the top 10, top 20, top 50 cryptocurrencies that the traders are looking at and looking for opportunities to nibble in and buy in on the way down, and then pump on the way out. So it's kind of a little bit quiet in the world of cryptocurrency flinging in terms of whipping things around, but there's always great conversation and interesting perspectives on the tokens that are out there. I would say more and more, while the altcoin was a hope that we could find the next Bitcoin, something you could buy for 3, 4, 5 cents a token and sell it for $9,000. Those dreams are becoming more and more diminished. So I think the mindset is that Bitcoin is here to stay, and some of the other alt currencies are slowly dwindling in their perspective until, of course, we see the next bull market, and then we'll revive that again, just like we do the junior miners in the Canadian stock market.
Yeah, it does seem like there's an interesting shakeup going on in the world. Altcoin has been pretty much all Bitcoin all the time. The dominance rate still strong out there. And we had technical guys on last week that keep mentioning as well that the technicals, it still all points to the Bitcoin leading the dance for the foreseeable future. Speaking of that foreseeable future, let's see what you guys have on your minds with a little bit of your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Questions, a portion of the show where you guys get to ask your questions about all things crypto. Nothing about the VERGE coin this week, Bill. Maybe next week we'll have those coming in. Let's see here. First up, ESIM. ESIM says, thanks for doing this show. Well, you're welcome, ESIM. Someone's got to talk about the options and the futures and all the fun things going on in the world of derivatives on the crypto space. So we thought, who better than us? He goes on to ask, my question, how did you arrive at your $30 million options volume benchmark? Well, you know what? That's kind of just a line in the sand I drew anecdotally after talking to a lot of different guests in the option space. And then, of course, empirically from looking at a lot of the data week after week after week, particularly out there on Deribit, it did seem like that was the Mason-Dixon line, that line of demarcation where things below that, it falls off a cliff. You're down to like 10, 12 million in volume, and then all of a sudden it gets above 30 million and it roars off to 40, 50, 60, 70 plus million. So it did seem like that was just kind of looking at the data, kind of drew that line ourselves. So there was no hard and fast rule behind it. It was more just a question of kind of compiling a lot of different data points and kind of arriving at that 30 million. Like, you may have your own level, what you think is active out there. By all means, have at it. For us here on the show, we kind of draw that line around 30 million, and it seems to be holding up. All right, let's see. Next up, Tom Simpson wants to know, why are there so few options players in crypto in the U.S.? Well, Bill, this question, I guess we can answer this a lot of different ways. It kind of depends what he means by options players. If he means on the trading side, then there's a heck of a lot here just in Chicago, and you could probably speak to that pretty well. If he means on like the exchange side, there are more of them coming, as we just mentioned, in the couple of weeks and months. We're going to have two of the biggest players in the regulated derivative space coming online in the option side. We, of course, have had Gemini and LedgerX and all these other players, ErisX, on the network and on this show in the past as well. So there are a legion of players on that front, and then you can get to the brokerage side. There's a lot of different ways we could take this question. So maybe I'll toss it to you, Bill, and see how you'd want to take it. What do you want to say here for our friend Tom, who wants to know why there are so few options players here in crypto in the U.S.?
Well, from my perspective, options are complicated. They're not as simple as just the binary buy and hold, or the profit and loss graph that you have in a futures contract, which is very linear, versus options, which are a little bit more complicated and nonlinear. So you can be right in options and still lose money, where if you're right in futures contracts, you will make money. So I believe that cryptocurrency is primarily a retail product, which will drive institutional adoption, which will then feed products back to the retail client. Just as we saw during the internet days, where people were using AOL, they were using email, and had websites and were using the internet before companies were creating their own company website and their own form handler to advertise their own business and to be able to buy and sell things online. I mean, Amazon, you could only buy books on Amazon up until the late 1990s or early 2000s, and now look at it. So I think that what we're seeing is retail adoption and interest is driving institutional platform and institutional safeguards, which will then, once it's in place, are going to push the option trading back to the retail. And we're going to see it again in 401k and IRAs, more than I think we're going to see it in futures contracts by quote-unquote retail people. That's my call.
Yeah, I think the answer, Tom, is I think there actually are a lot of players. It depends, again, where you look. There's a lot of trading here in Chicago in terms of venues, in terms of exchanges to trade on. There's a growing number here. As you just mentioned, in terms of brokers playing, there's some of the major brokers starting to dip their toes into the crypto options front, but there really haven't been a lot of regulated products for them to offer. So once I think ICE and CME come online with the options, that may change the game in terms of which brokers you can use to execute and trade and access this market, which will be a game changer, I know, for a lot of you. And of course, there are some of the smaller, newer venues out there like LedgerX and others that are kind of both broker and exchange and everything else kind of aggregated into one, which is kind of par for the course on the crypto side of the fence, where everyone kind of has to wear all the hats. So there are actually a lot of players out there. It kind of just depends where you're looking. And I think maybe the general answer to your question of why the U.S. isn't leading the charge on the options front in crypto is pretty much the general answer of regulation. Our regulators are still a little nervous, a little squeamish when it comes to the regulatory side. So that's probably is the overarching reason as to why we're not on the bleeding edge, so to speak, yet from a crypto options perspective. This is we got a lot of interesting questions here this week, Bill. Next up, we got Nelly, or maybe Neli. Let's go with Nelly. Nelly wants to know, this is another subjective one. Where is the best place to trade Bitcoin options? Well, there aren't many venues right now. Obviously, we talk about Deribit a lot here on the show, but they're not really accessible to a lot of our U.S. audience. So that one's kind of off the tape. LedgerX is here in the U.S., and they are available. Not a lot of volume going up there yet, but they are one you could certainly kick the tires on. And then, of course, these new venues, hopefully coming on, not new to options, old school and other products like CME and hopefully BAKKT, will maybe transform. Those are the ones I'm really excited about because they're hopefully going to bring a lot of the infrastructure of the traditional financial markets with them. So brokers turning them on, giving you the GUIs you're used to using and the access to the tools you're used to using and the accounts you're used to using. That will make life, I think, a lot easier for that. So maybe if you're waiting for that, the best place, maybe let's have this conversation. Let's table this for now. Let's come back in maybe January, and we'll see how this conversation has evolved. Do you agree with that, Bill? You think we're poised on the precipice of maybe a lot of evolution on the Bitcoin option space coming in the next couple of months?
Yeah, yes, I would say in general, any type of trading, whether it be options or Bitcoin itself, I think there's developers are feverishly building mobile apps in order to connect your Fidelity account or your other brokerage account to your phone so that you can just as easily use the money market cash that's sitting in your account to buy and sell cryptocurrency with. But there has to be a way that you can get an umbrella view, like an all-in-one view of your holdings. And I think that's what's also driving a little bit of precaution going forward in some of the retail adoption and the brokerage adoption of these products. So people want convenience. They want an easy graphical user interface to use and explore. Bitcoin is still kind of clunky in terms of buying and selling and transferring assets via the banking system. So again, as soon as we begin rolling out these tools so that you can buy and sell cryptocurrency and options or do covered call writing or whatever you want in the world of cryptocurrency on your phone as easily as you do any other trade, then we need to have the user experience in place as well as the regulatory environment. So again, clunky for now, but again, people are feverishly working on solving these problems.
All right, and last up here we have B76. Bill, we get some flavor of this question, seems like ever since BAKKT launched. Of course, they launched, the volume wasn't blowing the doors off, wasn't lighting the world on fire. So we get this question all the time, and this time from B76, he or she wanting to know, do we think BAKKT is a failure? Like I said, it's still early days. This thing hasn't been around too often. They already are racing out of the gate for options on these futures, so they clearly don't think the volume is that anemic. Some of that obviously has to do with competitive considerations. They want to beat CME out of the gate on that front, like we saw with CME and CBOE listing the futures and racing each other to list the future first back in late 2017. Some of this obviously is competitive, but clearly they're not concerned enough to hold back on listing options on the futures that people are already kind of wringing their hands over. So, Bill, I'm curious. I haven't had you on. I don't think you've been on since BAKKT has launched. A lot of people were looking toward BAKKT. You know, it was very hyped. Had big players behind it, big names, a lot of money, a lot of capital. A lot of people, particularly on the bullish side of Bitcoin, were looking at BAKKT as this, transformative thing that once it launched, it would be this inflection point that would bring in a lot of the institutional players who've been lurking on the sidelines, and that was going to lead us to this whole new race to the upside there in Bitcoin land. Hasn't quite materialized yet there, that way at least in the early days. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on BAKKT overall so far from what you've seen from them?
Patience. I think BAKKT is nowhere near a failure. I think it's a huge success. Just because we don't see the numbers instantaneously doesn't mean that it's not a success. These things need time to evolve. They need time to make sure that all the precautions and infrastructure is in place in terms of custody, the liquidity of the markets, the compliance that everybody knows is an integral part of being a broker-dealer and offering these kind of products. I mean, the last thing that we want is a custody issue that prevents people from getting their Bitcoin in and out of their account, and or someone coming in and hacking their account, or perhaps being attacked from outside nefarious players. These are all things that are going to take time. The cash, the physically settled Bitcoin futures contracts and all these products are immensely successful. I mean, just because we don't see the numbers today doesn't mean it's not successful. Was AOL a failure? Was Netscape a failure in the 1990s? Was Alta Vista as a search engine a failure per se? No, it came at the right time, at the right place where we needed it. And I think BAKKT is the same thing, and it's no different than all the other exchanges slowly building out their book of business, slowly building out their technology solutions, slowly building out their AML, KYC, and the other regulatory processes and procedures that need to be in place. No, I don't think it's a failure. I think it's a huge success. We just need to be patient and let it work and let one new event take over and again to evolve, kind of like the premortal man as we see first like a chimp and then growing into a full-size walking man. It takes time, and we're getting there little by little.
Couldn't agree with you more, sir. I've counseled patience many times here on this program when it comes to BAKKT. Doesn't seem like the crypto audience, they're not there for patience, Bill. They want it now. They want it. I understand they want that, but it always seemed like the hype swirling around BAKKT was a little bit overblown. They need to, like any other marketplace, they need to get their feet under them. They need to evolve. They need to see how the market engages with their products. So people who were writing these just completely histrionic treatises about how BAKKT was going to transform immediately the Bitcoin space, that always seemed a little bit overdone to me as well. So B76, everyone else who's asking all these questions about BAKKT, we're going to get them on here on the show one of these days to get them to talk about it themselves and what they're seeing, what's going on out there. But yeah, it's early days. I just mentioned the volume on the futures already. They're doing more than they were. And, of course, they have the options coming, so that's going to transform it for a lot of the people out there. Unfortunately, though, that music, Bill, means we come to the end. Man, this show flies by when we're having fun. What a journey it was today through the world of all things crypto, derivatives. Of course, we talked a lot about Bitcoin, the futures, the options, the implied, all that fun stuff. Got into all sorts of fun on the altcoin side. Talked our ETH, got into a lot of the ETH options as well as XRP and Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, even a little bit of the VERGE currency out there, the VERGE coin. So all sorts of fun out there in the altcoin universe. You got an altcoin you want us to talk about on the show? Hit us up. Let us know. We do love to hear from you guys. And before we go, Mr. Bill, if folks want to check out what you have cooking either in the land of Cenacle or maybe over there at your day job over there at Athena, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
Well, they can always visit the Athena Trade website at athena.trade. Our offices are located across the street from the Merchandise Mart, so we have some beautiful co-working space there for people that are looking for an affordable solution for a part-time desk. In terms of asset management, I mean, we maintain our position as a state-registered investment advisory firm. We're an accredited investment fiduciary, and we love talking about cryptocurrency and we're beginning to incorporate some of the exchange-traded funds, and I should say some of the products that are currently listed in our client portfolio. So, again, more of an old-school approach. We're more of a traditional investment advisor, but are always willing to have a cryptocurrency conversation because we just think it is the future of our industry, and we just love to have this kind of conversation.
There you go. Check him out. Cenacle Capital Management is the place to go. He's the easiest place to find him is probably at Cenacle Capital on the old Twitter machine there. It's Cenacle, Cenacle. Listeners, at Cenacle Capital. Follow Bill's tweets on all things crypto as well as traditional asset management there throughout the week. And on behalf of Mr. Bill and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for sending in such great questions. Keep them coming. Keep recommending it to your friends and leaving those reviews on the platforms. We love to hear from you guys. So many new listeners discovering this program. It's been fascinating to see as you guys are all just tuning in and embracing the world of all things crypto derivatives. And we'll see you back here next week for more of the Crypto Rundown.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.